Okay, good morning, Angela. Thank you for joining me on Thriving Thursdays. So, today is a day where you get to share your tips on thriving in life. So, half an hour, 3 to 5 tips. And for those of you that don't know you, you are the founder of Virago Wellness, a coach, mentor, and speaker. You also trained with Caroline in London, and you help women, you empower women through self-discovery to fulfill their greatest life. Okay, so you
Yeah.
work on a one-to-one capacity, but you also offer group coaching and work with corporate partnerships as well.
Yes, I do. I do.
So
Hello.
welcome. Thank you for joining us. Right, so to get started, please tell us about Virago Wellness. What it is, the ethos behind it.
Absolutely. So, I did what everyone tells you not to do when I started my business, and I chose a word that a lot of people aren't aware of and a lot of people can't pronounce. So before we started recording, we had a bit of a, can I just check, is it Virago? And I have that all the time. So forgive me on that. However, I discovered the word Virago when I was choosing what to name my business. And it was back in 2020 when I qualified and became accredited as a coach. So a bit of background. So prior to that, I'd worked in corporate my whole life. I'd had 14 years experience. My background was I was in a leadership position working in culture and engagement for an online retailer. So I'd always been really passionate about what makes people happy at work, what makes them thrive, what makes them get up and want to succeed and come to work every day. I'd always been really focused on that. And I'd always had this belief as well about work, that we spend so much time there that we want to be happy. We want to be connected when we're there. We want to be getting what we want out of it. And, I'd always had this kind of ethos running through me. And then after I'd had my second child and I went back to work, I was really struggling with the balance of work, life, me, all of that stuff. And this coincided with the pandemic happening. So Virago Wellness started actually in the thick of the pandemic. And the word Virago, when I found it, it means a warrior-ess like woman, a woman of exemplary strength. And all around me at that time, I could just see people just like rabbits in the headlight, with this ongoing collective trauma, that we were experiencing of going through a global pandemic, nobody really knowing how long it was going to go on for. People were trying to carry on that balance of work and life, but on a completely different scale. You've got people working from home, you've got the school shut, nursery shut. And what I started to notice was that, in a lot of families, women were bearing the brunt of trying to keep it all together. So to me, they were Viragos. They were women of exemplary strength. And I just felt a call to support them in a different way than I had in my career to that point. I'd had a 5-year plan. So I'm going to talk about being intentional in your life in a moment. But my 5-year plan was always to leave the corporate world and to do something probably around counseling or coaching with individuals. And then when this happened, it's a bit like when you put something out to the universe. I said to my husband, in 5 years, I'm going to leave and I'm going to do this and I'm going to support women and this is my plan. And he was a bit like, okay, well, okay, 5 years from now. And then as soon as COVID came, things progressed really quickly. We were making structural changes in the business that I work within. And I was like, this is it. This is my time. So I set up Virago Wellness to coach women, to support them in their everyday life. And for the first kind of 2 years, Virago was very much about life coaching and the balance between work, life, what's going on at home. A lot of focus on wellness because that's what people needed during the pandemic. Yeah. And where I am now is that my youngest has started school. So both children are in school, that feeling, if anybody knows what it's like. I'm now expanding. I'm continuing to play that role and to focus on wellness. But as you said, I've taken on corporate clients again. So I'm back in the workplace, supporting people to thrive when it comes to their careers. So I've noticed a real shift of people back in the office, not 100%, lots of people working hybrid, but suddenly, we're kind of over the pandemic and we're starting to think more about, okay, I can start to plan again. I can start to think about my career. I can start to feel empowered at work again. And what's next for me? So, so I suppose you're bang on with it's about supporting women, empowering them to live their happiest and most fulfilled life at work and at home. Yeah.
And that's the balance, isn't it? I mean, that's really inspiring listening to you talk about that and your own personal experiences. And I do believe when we put things out into the universe listens. And we have to be really careful what we put out and send out to the universe. And like you said, in 5 years' time, that's what you're going to do. But actually, your moment came sooner and you saw the opportunity and took the brave, courageous decision to step away and follow your own path.
Yes.
Okay. So, Angela, I'm dying for you to share your tips to thrive in life. I've been given all of them previously. So your first one is to be intentional. So what does that mean, first of all?
So for me, being intentional is about being strategic when it comes to your life. So we live in such a fast-paced life these days, we're always switched on. It's always from one thing to the next thing. It can feel like we are never where we want to be. We're always, moving. And it's really easy in like modern society for you to fall into this trap of, I often talk about being on the hamster wheel, where life feels like it's happening around you and that you're just getting up every day and doing the doing, and you're doing what you want to do. Sorry, you're doing what you need to do to get by. And for me, this is where I was in 2019, 2 children under the age of 5, myself and my husband, both in, leadership positions in our work. So trying to do everything, trying to be everything to everyone. And slowly and over time, I had become bottom of the list, to the point where I actually was working with a coach myself. And she said to me, okay, so first question I'm going to ask you is, who is Angela? And I was like, oh yeah, so I'm a mum, I'm head of culture for this online retailer. I'm married, and I'm married. And she was like, whoa, just before you go any further, these things that you're sharing with me are the roles that you play in life. And what I want to know is, who is Angela? And it was like, whoa, absolutely. And I've got goosebumps now thinking about that moment. And I felt so sad. I felt so sad because I couldn't answer the question. And I almost felt myself going back to when you're at school and you're like, well, I'm an Evertonian and I like playing hockey and all of this crap from school. And I was like, God, yeah, who am I? And that was a moment for me where I realized that I was on that treadmill. I was on that hamster wheel. And a lot of what I was doing and giving away in life was in service of everybody around me. And I wasn't strategic and I wasn't intentional about what I wanted. I couldn't be strategic because I didn't know who I was at that point. So that kickstarted this whole journey of self-awareness for me. So when I say be intentional, I mean, know who you are, understand who you are. I mean, we're always on that journey, aren't we? We never fully know who we are because we think we know who we are, and then we peel back another layer and we're like, oh my God, I'm a massive people pleaser. Who knew? So yeah, understand yourself, take time to think about your thoughts, your emotions, what's going on for you, so that you can be intentional and have a plan. And I know from the work that you do that you're all about having a plan, having a goal, taking action. And we need those foundations of self-awareness, because quite often as well, we can find ourselves having a goal, but we don't actually know if it's our goal, it's our parents' goal, it's society's goal for us. So for me, you know, being intentional and self-aware are the foundations of being able to thrive, because when you get to that point where you've got your 6-month plan or your 2-year plan or your 5-year plan, and it's 100% aligned with who you are and what you want, you're going to succeed, you know, because you want to make it happen. So yeah, that's be intentional for me, you know, and you will know as well that, you know, as a coach, we often talk about like our values. That's a big part of self-awareness, you know your values. When you know your values and you're living aligned to those values, you know, I like to talk to my clients about, well, do you feel like you're aligned to your values right now? And quite often, if they're not, if they're a bit off, you know, if things aren't going great for them, they'll go, actually, you know what, a big value of mine is authenticity, and I'm currently having to do something in work that's going against who I am and it doesn't feel authentic. And I'm like, right, great. So you're not in alignment with who you are. Let's be intentional, you know, let's get focused on who you are and what matters to you. Does that make sense?
So well said. So well said. Yeah. I mean, I can completely relate. And it's almost like a painstaking moment when you speak to women and men who they don't actually know who they are right now in that moment. And like you just told everyone, it's when you question who you are and you think, right, well, I'm a mom. This is what I do for a job. You know, I'm a daughter, a sibling, a friend. But they say, well, no, who are you? And you're, and you don't know. And
No.
it's really hard realization, because we are so busy. We're going through life, we're working, we're, you know, having families, we're going out, we need to be here, there, and everywhere. And we lose track of just being.
Yes.
Just being.
Yeah. And, you know, what I would say as well is that, you know, to become intentional, you need to stop, don't you? You need to take that time to stop. And what I want for my clients is that they are focused, confident, and self-assured. And the reason why those 3 things matter to me is because most of the people that I meet when they start working with me are none of those things. They're not focused, they're all over the place. Their confidence is low and they question themselves all the time. So we'll talk about, you know, like, to be intentional, you need to be connected to that essence of who you are. You need to stop. And it's so, like you've said, Helen, it's so hard in this modern world. And I'm not great at it. You know, I'd love to say I sit and meditate every day. I don't. I would love to do that, but I don't. I've got 2 kids. I run a business and I have a busy, exciting social life and all of those things. So I go to places that force me to stop. I see a coach. I've seen a therapist in the past. I go to women's circles where we stop and we meditate. I go to an online women's circle, which involves meditation, because I know that naturally I won't stop and do those things. So I put them in my calendar with experts that are going to force me to stop, and I make it happen.
And that's a great tip, because I was going to ask you then, because what do people do when it's okay for us as coaches because we've learned it, we've trained in it. But yes, for the majority of people, and I think it is the majority of people, they're out there and they're on this hamster wheel functioning, and you know, they are happy. A lot of people are happy. But to say to them to stop, it would be, okay, I see the benefit, I hear the benefit, but what do you mean by stop? So also, like, taking the time for yourself to think about what you want, who you are. And you've just said it there, you sometimes have to put yourself in a position where you have to stop. And sometimes it might be with professionals, sometimes it might be with like-minded people, but it's making sure that you put yourself in that position where you have to give yourself the time. So that's a really good tip for those that don't know how to stop, where to stop, and actually making sure that they put things in place where they have to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll say one final thing on that, because this was like a huge thing for me. And I guess I'm in a unique position in that I lost someone very close to me when I was young. So my mum passed away when I was 17 of cancer. And lots of people experience losing a parent at a young age, and it has an impact on you. And she died when she was 50, right? And on the lead up to kind of, I guess, my awakening, or awareness that I wanted to feel different, or I wanted something different in my life, was this sort of niggling feeling that I was getting close to the age of 40. And in my head I was like, that was mum's last decade, like, that was when she got sick and all of those things. And that I was aware of that. And I can remember so many times walking to my car after work, and this voice in my head was like, if you had 10 years left, would you be doing this? Would you be doing this? And I think that a lot of people who reach out to a coach, or who want to make a change in their life, if they're really honest with themselves, they've got that niggling feeling that something isn't quite right,
Yeah.
And when you stop, that voice gets louder and you can't ignore it anymore. And this amazing book, isn't there, the Regrets of the Dying.
Fantastic. Yes.
Incredible book. And one of them is like, I wish I'd lived a life in honor of myself and not other people. And I've got goosebumps thinking about that. But that for me just felt so prevalent as I approached that age where mum got sick, that actually, nothing is guaranteed, is it? Life isn't guaranteed. And while we're here, let's just make it intentional. Like, let's do what we want to do. Let's be who we want to be.
Live.
Yeah.
Your second point, Angela, was find your confidence.
Absolutely.
Like you've said earlier, that a lot of clients that come to you initially don't have confidence.
Mm-hmm.
You come across as a very confident person.
Thank you.
Tell me personally what confidence means to you and how you find your confidence.
Good question. So confidence to me was the thing that I was constantly told throughout school that I needed more of. So if you look at any of my reports from school, it would be, great student, worked hard, polite, nice in class, all of those things that a good girl would be. She could do better if she had more confidence. And that was just like a constant thing that I remember people saying to me, oh, you should be more confident. But nobody ever sat down and said to me, this is how you become more confident. Or no one really explained that confidence was a skill that could be mastered and crafted over time. So I kind of lived most of my life presuming that confidence was something that you were born with, or something that you had if you were perfect. And we'll talk about perfectionism on my next point. But for me, I always felt like I was at my most confident when everything appeared to be going well on the outside. When actually, when I started to do self-discovery work and I worked on myself, I realized that actually, confidence, first of all, comes from the Latin word fidere, which means to trust, which I just love. Actually, it's not about being born with this God-given right that you think that you're everything and that you can achieve whatever you want. It's a birthright to trust in yourself. And once I understood that, I was like, I don't have to change to be confident. I need to trust that who I am is good enough, and that I need to acknowledge that I'm human, acknowledge that I'm going to make mistakes, and use those mistakes as a platform for my growth. Every time I make a mistake, I become a more confident person because I learn. And don't get me wrong, I have lots of clients, we still do that thing where the mistake feels really hard at first and we have to work through it. But then with time, we can look back and go, oh, that didn't work. And you know what? It wasn't about me. It wasn't because I'm wrong or I did something wrong. It was because the circumstances, it just didn't work. And I'll learn from that and I'll move on and I'll be more confident. So, yeah.
Can I ask you then, I've know lots of people personally and clients as well that may come to me, and I'm sure so many people can relate or know people when they've had their confidence knocked from other people.
Yeah.
You know, particularly you've like divorce, separation, and people can be at their rock bottom, and it's no fault of their own. It's just where they are currently. How do you talk to somebody, or what tip would you give somebody that is at rock bottom and they need to build their confidence slowly again after being hurt?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, before you even said the word rock bottom, I was like, she's talking about rock bottom moments, because this is actually a term I use with clients. You know, okay, this is a rock bottom moment, but this is good news, because rock bottom is literally rock bottom. Everything that we do is going to be an upward trajectory from now. So this is a good place that you're in rock bottom, because it's only going to get better. When somebody is in rock bottom, they fail to be able to see, I feel, a lot of the positives and a lot of what's come before, because they're so focused on that rock bottom moment, like you say, whether it's divorce or, you know, a redundancy is a big one.
Yes.
In the modern world, people lose their jobs, and that has a massive impact on confidence. So we start with looking at the facts, because this thing that has happened to you, whatever it is a circumstance. You know, the relationship didn't work out. Okay. The job didn't work out. Okay. This is a thing that's happened to you. It is not you, and it doesn't need to define you unless you let it. If you don't do anything about it, it will define you. It will. You might as well walk around with a t-shirt on saying, I was made redundant, don't ever give me a job again, I'm not good enough. Or you can accept that this is just a thing that's happened in life. And what we'll do now is we'll focus on all the positives that you can't see right now. So one of the things that I always tend to focus on is strengths. You know, what are your strengths right now? And a lot of clients, if they're in a really dark place, they can't see anything positive, I will then suggest that they speak to someone who loves them, you know, and ask them, just write down what you think my strengths are. And over time, I always give them like an A4 piece of paper. Before our next call, fill it with all your strengths and all the positive things about yourself. And every client goes, I'm not going to be able to do that. And every client manages it, because once you start focusing on the positives, once you start focusing on the good stuff, it more comes, you know, it just does. So we start there. We start with getting out of that hole, and we start with focusing on what's positive. And we just focus on feeling 1% better than what we do now. You know, no pressure. Just what's the one thing you can do that's going to make you feel 1% better? What makes you feel confident? You know, is it like self-care? You know, do you feel more confident when you've looked after yourself better? Go do that. Go do some exercise. Just do one thing for you. And when you're at rock bottom, it's important that you don't focus on the complete other side, because that's too much for a client sometimes. You know, when we're in that place, it's like, I'm never going to get there. So it's just those small baby steps. And then it happens. You'll know it happens so quickly, doesn't it? You know, yeah.
So we've got 5 minutes to talk about the last two. So next one, I know we can talk for hours. The next one is avoid the perfectionist trap.
Yeah.
So, right. So I'm not a perfectionist. Lots of, clients and people are. Tips for avoiding that trap, first of all.
Yeah. Okay. So avoiding the trap. I would say that I can't talk about avoiding the trap without just touching on why it's such a big thing. So it's impossible. Even non-perfectionists, I feel, are falling into perfectionist tendencies, because we live in a world where we're only ever seeing everybody's best side. You know, social media has given us the ability to show everybody the best bits of our life. So our brains are becoming accustomed to thinking that that is normal, when it's not normal. We're not always on holiday. Our house isn't always tidy. You know, our skin doesn't always look like it does when we've had our makeup done. You know, we don't, you know, all of those things they're not true life, but we're constantly being projected that on a daily basis through social media. But perfectionism has always been an issue, particularly for women who feel the pressure that if you've got any insecurity that you're not good enough, perfectionism is going to eat that alive and be like, yeah, you're not good enough. You've got to show the world that everything you do, everything you put out there is absolutely perfect. And in order to avoid that, it needs to come back to that acceptance of your humanness. And I think sometimes perfectionists, they can't even look at their humanness because there's so much shame in it. You know, there's so much shame in the fact that we are messy and that we are flawed and that we are wild and we are sometimes crazy and all of those things. There's so much shame in that. You know, I talk to clients about things like anger. You know, oh, I shouted at my children. It's like, okay, good. You showed your children that like anger is a normal human emotion. Did you apologize after it? No, I couldn't, because I just felt so ashamed. This is where perfectionism drives that belief that we have to hide in a hole when we're less than perfect. And actually, for me, avoiding the perfectionist trap is accepting your humanness, accepting that you'll make mistakes, and don't fall into a shame hole. Talk about it. You know, I talk to my clients, I make them talk about it. Why did you shout? What happened on the lead up? You know, this is all good information for your self-awareness. So,
and I suppose even as well, like in the corporate world as well, when you make a mistake at such a high level, potentially, it's never highlighted, and you will rarely hear a response saying, I made a mistake, and those under might take the fall.
Yeah, exactly. You know, from a culture perspective, whether it's in work or in a family, people acknowledging mistakes and using failure as a platform for growth. You know, all relationships improve after an argument because it gives you an ability to be honest and truthful about, well, why did we get to this place? It's the same with parenting. It's the same with relationships. It's the same in work. Everything improves when we acknowledge the dark sides of ourselves that we quite often don't want to acknowledge.
And yeah, definitely. And like normalizing, I like to normalize failure. Like failure is good. Failure is fantastic. Keep failing, you know? So normalizing failure and also saying sorry and, you know, just being able to be you, the good, the bad, every part of you, because it's all unique.
And always think about progress over perfection, you know, which kind of takes us into our last point, actually. Yeah.
Celebrate yourself. And why is this important? Because I know I don't do this enough, but
Okay.
yes, why celebrate yourself? Why is it important?
Right. Celebrating yourself is what is going to make the journey enjoyable. So we talked about starting off by being intentional. So knowing who you are and knowing what you want. Now, once you know what you want, that doesn't mean you're going to get it overnight. Like, you're going to have to go on a journey, right? You're going to be on a journey of building your confidence and letting go of perfectionism. And that won't be smooth sailing. That, you know, there's so much nuance involved in that. You're going to constantly be tripping over yourself and all of those things. So it's important to focus on the progress that you're making and enjoying the journey. So we have this thing at home on a Friday night. It's always bottle of wine night on a Friday night. So we open a bottle of wine, myself and my husband, got the kids to bed, we eat dinner, and we encourage each other to celebrate our wins for that week, because the human mind loves to focus on the negative. That's our survival instinct in us. But when we switch it to focus on the positive, you know, end your week by going, what are the things I did well this week that I'm really proud of? He does it, I do it. And it's just the best way of celebrating you. And we'll have little cheers and we'll celebrate ourselves because we're a team and we both want our dreams to come true. We're both focused. And I just love that idea of celebrating yourself. And, you know, I'd say in work as well to women, I'm like, in your one-to-one, You know, are you highlighting all the things you're doing well? And most of the time women are like, well, no, actually, I focus on what I could do better. And that's fine. That's a big part of it. But don't forget to focus on your strengths. Don't forget to focus on your wins along the way. Because just going back to that first point I made about, you know, your life is here to serve you. And there's no guarantee of how long your life is going to be. There's no guarantee that you'll ever get to that final goal and destination of, I don't know, retiring in Spain or whatever it is that you want. So celebrate yourself along the way and enjoy the journey.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. And I just think to add to that point as well, gratitude. You know, even like that win at the end of the week with a bottle of wine and your husband, and being a team and sharing your experiences as a team, but also individually together. But then also every day as well.
Yeah.
We have the opportunity every day at the end to say, this was an amazing day for this reason, and looking for those positives. And it's building happy, healthy habits, and building on that. So
you don't need a husband, by the way. You can do this on your own.
No.
That's the habit that we're in. We are very much in right now, and we're focused on that. But you can do it on your own, and you don't need to do it with a glass of wine either. You know, just sit there and have 5 minutes, do it in the bath or on a walk, and go, right, come on. You know, what am I building? What am I creating? Why am I proud of myself? Just give yourself that pat on the back that we all need.
Right. Thank you so much. I'm conscious our half an hour is up. So it's been an absolute pleasure and so authentic. And thank you so much for sharing your deep insights, not just you personally, but everything you talk through with your clients and fundamental things that people can do as well. So thank you so much, Angela, for your time today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a joy to speak to you, Helen. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.